Okay, everyone. Well, welcome to the webinar, Superstar PR, and we are going to be talking about how to generate leads with public relations. It's so nice to have you all here. It's a beautiful day here in March near Chicago, and I'd like to show you a slide that's going to be of the Chicago River. We're going to be making the Chicago River turn green on Saturday, which is always very exciting. And this actually, the reason I'm showing you this is the Twitter post that I showed that got the very most interactions ever. And it was a picture from someone else. It's from Choose Chicago. And there's a quote from the Irish writer and poet Oscar Wilde here, which says, "The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about." And that's really true with public relations. You want to be talked about. And that's what we're going to do today, is really help you figure that out. And in marketing, there are so many different things you can do to really make things happen, and it can be really confusing. I know, I work with people a lot, and what I believe is everybody who wants to stand out and be sought out needs to be a thought leader, and PR is the fastest route to the top. And wouldn't it be easy if getting new clients was as easy as it is to feed these goats at Brookfield Zoo? It's so easy that all you have to do is go stand by where the sign says "Feed us here," and you can feed them and they come right up, and that's really wonderful. And that's kind of how I like to think about marketing and PR, is if you can get the right people and if you have what they need, they'll come right up to you. And PR is the fastest route to the top. So what we're going to talk about today, we have a program guide. We've got 3 different things. We're going to talk about visibility, which is how to power up PR, influence, how to lead up in 4 directions. And then the last part is production and how to speed up lead generation. And thank you for being on this webinar. I do have a gift for you, which is Success Secrets of the Online Marketing Superstars PR Guide. It's a chapter from a best-selling book, and it was published by Entrepreneur Magazine. So it's a great get started kind of kit. And I do speak to a lot of groups, and one of the biggest pieces of feedback I get is, how do we take the next steps? How do we make this even bigger and better? How do we make this information work for us? So if you stay to the end, I will give you a way to make that happen. And thank you for your attention today. If you do have the opportunity to turn off your, you can mute yourself. I think I've muted everyone, and then also if you can turn off your video, that would be great. So if I can hide that. All righty. So anyway, let's talk about, I'm going to see if I can turn off all the videos here. Hold on just a second. Okay. So, all right. So let's take a deep breath, and thank you so much for participating today. I'd like to ask you to take a moment to really focus on what you're here to do, which is to really take the principles of public relations and help you with your lead generation activities. And to get us in the mood, I'd like you to think about a place where you felt you're most successful. And maybe it was when you were on vacation. Maybe you were at Disneyland, supposed to be the happiest place on earth, or maybe Disney World. And what kind of emotions were you feeling there? Was it happiness, love, joy, wonder, gratitude? Really, what kinds of emotions were you feeling and why? Who were you with? What was happening? And really just kind of think about how you feel when you're really successful. And as an insurance agent and a financial advisor, I know that you ask your clients to step into these types of success visions. I know that you might be asking them to think about what it would be like to feel like you're financially secure, your family's well taken care of, to feel like what it's like on a college graduation, or to feel like what it's like in retirement. And this image here was taken in California at San Mateo. It was the tail end of a 5-day trip, which was a phenomenal trip. We got to go to Napa Valley, which is where we went on our honeymoon. I got to go to a dinner with my husband's executive team on Fisherman's Wharf, which was very tasty and fun and very touristy. And then this was taken on a walk with my niece, and she and her husband created a system called the Wealthy Mind. I'm a Wealthy Mind trainer. And we were just walking along, and we happened to turn and look out at the mountains, and we saw the rainbow. And that's really what I feel like success is like, is if you can feel like you know where the rainbow is and you know how to get there. And that's what's really wonderful. And with this time we have together today, I'd like to help you feel more successful and more of a VIP. You may have noticed that we're going to be talking about visibility, influence, and productivity. That spells out VIP. So to take you from where you are now to being even more successful. And what happens if you don't? Well, you know, one of the things I love about working with people is I take them from where they're feeling, and they really are, invisible, which was great for Harry Potter. He needed a cloak of invisibility, but a cloak of invisibility is the worst thing for any kind of business, especially in insurance and financial services. You and your products might be ignored, and people might really feel like your services are completely irrelevant. They don't even get why you're there. And that can lead to a lot of things. As you can see, there's really no clear vision here. Sure, a rainbow might be coming out after the rain, but right now it's really blurry. We can't even tell where we're at. And so without the right kind of approach to public relations and lead generation, you can wind up being invisible, ignored, and irrelevant. And we don't want that to happen. So who am I, and why am I the one talking to you today? And I am an insurance WebEx mentor advisor. I'd like to give them a thank you, a huge thank you for hosting this webinar today and to promoting it to all of their members. And again, a lot of gratitude and thanks to you for taking time to show up. I have a history of starting out in the insurance industry, and I'll take you through a quick walk through that way. But I do love this quote from Julius Caesar. And actually, Julius Caesar was at the place where this picture was taken. And I did meet one of his staff members, this fellow here at the Roman Baths in Bath, England. And he told me that Julius would like my notebook. He called this my notebook, and it's really my phone, but that's what he said. And what a wondrous time to be walking around and looking at a same spot where Julius Caesar had been. So that's kind of like my experience. You know, I walk around, I see a lot of different things, go to a lot of different places, and then I bring all this knowledge back to people. And just a little quick highlights of where I've been. I love teaching and training, and you can see there's a group at a national convention at McCormick Place in Chicago. There's another group that's out in Las Vegas. I'm a featured author in 2 books in Success Secrets of the Social Media Marketing Superstars. I wrote the LinkedIn chapter, Online Marketing Superstars. I wrote the PR chapter. I founded Social Media Club Chicago back in 2008. Which at the time people were like, what is social media? Is it ever going to go anywhere? And look where we are now. So that's what a lot of people in Chicago know me for. We grew the club into one of the largest in the world. And we had events where we would sell out 300 tickets within 18 hours. To me, looking back on it, it was just completely mind-blowing. And it was really a wonderful time. Then that's a picture of me with Bill McDermott, and he is the CEO of SAP. I met him when I was speaking in Frankfurt, and I looked him up today. When he started at that company, it was worth $39 billion, and now it's worth $145 billion. So he really is a superstar, and I like to hang out with people who are super successful, and that's why I'm glad I'm hanging out with you today. These are some different companies and organizations that my company has worked with. My company is called Corey West Media. It's named after my mother and grandmother. And what I've really done from the outset is to help people really mind the gap. This is from London in the Tube. If you've been there, you know that. And there's also a great documentary called Minding the Gap that was nominated for an Oscar. It's about skateboarding. And I just love that term, minding the gap. So I like to take people from where they are to where they can really go and be successful. And a lot of times people don't know how to mind the gap on their own. What they're trying to do is figure out how to do it themselves. And sure, they might have an idea, but unless if you have a success guide, you're not really sure how to get there. You could, but it could take a while. So just some examples. I'm going to just breeze through my career real quickly just to show you how I know personally what it's like to be the very worst at something and then go on and be the very best. It takes a lot of faith in yourself, endurance, persistence, and good mentors. So my first job was with Dun & Bradstreet. I helped insurance agents get leads. And what we did was we had a lead system, and the ones who were the very best and the most successful were the ones who were consistent. I learned that. Then I thought, well, I'm so good at teaching other people, I'm going to go into sales myself. Big mistake. I was horrible, the worst person in the entire company. I was trying to sell group life insurance to insurance brokers to sell to clients, and no one wanted to buy it. I resigned, and my boss said, do you have another job? And I said, well, not really. And he said, okay, well, then you just are going to stay with us and go to a different territory. So I did. I wound up leading the company in sales. I'm winning a trip to Hawaii. And it was, I still just think about how wonderful it was to be able to do that. And that was exciting. So then I decided, I'm so good at sales, I'm going to be a sales trainer. So then I went to become a national sales trainer for a company owned by Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And I developed sales training programs that took the sales from where they were up to a 400% increase. And honestly, it was really simple. All I did was I talked to the people who were the worst salespeople, which is where I was. And I said, what are your biggest problems? I asked them the questions. Then I went to the best salespeople and I said, how would you answer these questions? And then we got together, we practiced, and everybody's sales went up. So that was exciting, but it was a lot of travel. So I decided to start my own company. And that's Corey West Media, named after my mother and grandmother. And honestly, I decided I was going to be a writer and a marketing communications consultant, no experience at all. And I decided I was going to be a PR person, which is really funny because guess what? No experience at all. Well, I did have some experience. I wrote a press release for our local Head Start. And believe it or not, the paper did not even know that we had one there. And it was a volunteer gig, but we got a lot of coverage. And I thought, maybe I can do this. So I wound up doing PR for healthcare systems in Chicago. It was kind of funny because they thought I could do it, and I made it up as I went along. No one, and even the reporter said, we've never seen press releases like this. So it was very exciting. I learned a lot, stumbled a lot along the way, but then I started a blog called Wired PR Works in 2006, which has over 1,200 articles now, and it's about how to really get the media attention you deserve. And that's what we want to talk about today. So let's go into our first part, which is how to power up PR. And here we're going to really learn what PR means. PR means personality and reputation. That's how I'm redefining it. I know a lot of people say public relations. And really what I want you to think about here, and if you're taking notes, and I hope you are, is what is your personality like? Who are you? What do you do? When do you do it? Where? Why is probably the biggest question you want to ask. And then how is another question. So this is a way to really develop your personality for yourself and so that other people can see you too. One of the biggest mistakes I see made is people have really beautiful, vibrant personalities, but they don't really show them off. I know I worked with someone once and they said they rode a motorcycle, but they didn't want people to know that. And I said, oh, well, what kind is it? And they said, it's a BMW. And I said, that's a pretty nice motorcycle. And they said, yeah, it is. I said, you know, I think that costs as much as a car. And they said, yeah, it does. And I said, why wouldn't you be proud of that? And because the thing is, there's a whole community around that brand. So that's one example. Another example could be, you know, I speak a lot to groups about personal branding, and I'll ask people, let's talk about your personality. And I'll say, who here reads books? Some people might, who likes movies, who likes fishing, golf, and slowly the hands go up. And then by the time we really start getting to know each other, One of my favorite stories is I had one person who was really quiet at the back of the room, and they came up and they were a cook, a chef, and they started just going on and on about what they could do. So how can you really beam out more of your personality? That's really what we want to work on here. And then what kind of a reputation do you have? And you might think that you have a great reputation, and I'm sure it's really good. But really today, people decide what your reputation is for you. And you might be the type of person who on social media thinks, oh, I have a really great dog, so I'm going to post a lot of pictures of my dog. Well, you have a great reputation as a good dog owner, but you need to really broaden that out. So the first thing we want to think about is your personality and reputation. The next thing we're going to look at is really changing your mindset from being an insurance producer, insurance broker, financial advisor into being a media powerhouse. Yes, you heard that right. If you're going to get visibility, you have to be a media powerhouse. Now, that doesn't mean that, you're going to be like Oprah and have your own network, but it does mean that you are going to really shift your view into being a publisher. So this is the first thing you want to do, is think about what you're going to publish. What are you going to report on? And reporting on could be, if you are, I know that you have to be really careful and you don't want to give people financial advice, or you don't want to really give them insurance guidance on a blog, but what you can do is you can talk about trends. And yes, maybe you can give them some kind of advice, but I mean, you're not going to do a Q&A probably and analyze somebody's insurance and say, this is what I would do. But you could say, like, if you're talking about housing trends, you could talk about what's going on in real estate in your area. If there is a group of people that you really like working with, so let's say that you work with other professional services firms, you can report on what's happening with them, and it's really your take. Then the next thing you want to think about is, what are you going to inform people of? How are they going to see you as the news anchor they want to follow? What kind of news are you going to give them? And every morning, if you have one of those Amazon devices, I don't want to say its name because it might start talking, but it will give you a daily rundown. And so what kind of news are you going to be reporting on? Then mediatize your message means, how are you going to make it media friendly? And here we're really talking about different types of media. We're going to get into this in a little bit later, but really, how are you going to mediatize your message? And this means break it up from just words into pictures, videos, even visuals. And then what is the experience that you're going to really be talking about? How are you going to take people from one place to another? And probably the biggest thing here to look at is repeat. Because one of the problems I run into with public relations is people want to do 1 or 2 press releases. It's like, we just want to have one big blast of confetti. And that's good, you get some coverage, but if you really want to get the snowball effect and have things keep moving, you need to keep repeating yourself. So we'll talk a little bit about how to do a plan that will help you stay on track. And then one more thing to think about in this section is journalists have a system called the inverted pyramid. And really it starts with the need to know versus nice to know. So what do people really need to know? And I feel like this is a good guide for everything. If you put on top, what do you need to know? And then you get down to nice to know, that really helps you organize what you're doing. And when you think about what kind of news you want to make, you really need to think about, what do people need to know? And then you can put the nice to know stuff down at the bottom. So that's our first section that we covered, how to power up your PR. And we talked about how to look at your personality. It's your personality, it's also your client's personality. And really, if you want to get closer insights here, think about the people you best click with. Is it people who are at a certain stage of their life? Maybe it's young families, young professionals, or maybe it's people who are 5 to 10 years out to retirement. Maybe it's families with 1 child, maybe it's families with lots of kids. And also, so you've got demographics, you've got age. Also, lifestyle. What are your people really interested in, and where are you going to find them? How do you connect with each other? So if you've got a cross path where you meet each other with hobbies or interests or social groups, that's fantastic. And then reputation, that's really important too. Really think about what kind of reputation you want to have and how you're going to get it. So now that you've gotten more visible, what we're going to do is we're going to lead up in 4 deep. So it's not north, west, east, and south. Those are 4 directions. What it is a 4-directional system that we use at my company. And it's digital, direct, dynamic, and data. So we'll go into these. We won't dive super deep into them, but we'll talk about them a little bit. So if you are going to really think about how you're going to be more influential, and whether you realize it or not, you are influential already. And in the digital space, influence can come in the way of where you are with search engines. People, if they're looking for you right away, they can find you. If they search for, let's say they search for insurance agent, your town, then you should pop up. And if you don't, then that's something you need to think about. Direct is how you relate to people one-on-one, and that could be online or it could be in real life. And in real life, one of the things I think that's really important to think about is where do you want to show up? And even if you're thinking, wow, I signed up for this, but I'm not sure what kind of a press release I could ever write. Let's say there's an event, maybe your local mayor is talking about economic indicators for the next year, or your school board is previewing or reviewing some great accomplishments. You can cover these back to being a media publisher and directly report on what's going on. And video is another way to really add a great direct connection. People feel like they're talking to you one-on-one. Dynamic is the next one. That's really where we get into storytelling. I like to say, what are you going to do to bring the zing? So how are you going to make this really lively? And let's face it, there is a lot of competition for attention, not just online, but even in real life. People are looking everywhere for lots of different information. So how are you really going to be dynamic enough that they're really going to want to connect with you? And one of the ways to do that is by being emotional. So back to when we were looking at the picture of the rainbow, what kind of emotions do you want people to feel? And that's the way we're getting people's interest. If you watch what's going on with advertising, some of the stuff, you have no idea even what the product is for, but you just think it's funny. And so people are looking for that kind of tripwire. They want to really feel like there's some kind of emotion there. One of the easiest ways to do this, if you want to do it digitally to be dynamic, is to look at quotes. People always want to feel good. So if you post quotes, that's one way to get really some interest. And the last part is data. I feel like with marketing and public relations, measuring what you do is key. And you really only want to take actions that are going to help you get more customers, especially with lead generation. There's a lot of different things you can do, but what is really going to bring those people through the journey cycle? So that's how we break our communications plans up in the 4 different directions. And it really helps our clients because then they understand that it's not all about being digital. It's not, and I think the direct is the part that really gets forgotten and left behind. I come from a background with direct marketing, direct mail, and those principles work everywhere, but even the one-on-one conversations, it's just so important to know what you're going to say. Dynamic, the storytelling, it's easy to add that in, and then data, just remember to really measure it. And we'll talk about a few ways to do that. So when we think about, when we're looking at the 4 different directions, one of the things I'd like you to do is to ask Siri to find you, because we're looking at voice search as becoming really, really popular. And if you look, public relations is a way to really get you into voice search. Now, I do want to just have a disclaimer here. Public relations and your press releases, we'll talk about how to release those online here in a minute. They will be indexed into the search engines probably for 30 days. It could be longer, but it's not going to have an everlasting effect unless if you publish it other places as well where it will be indexed longer. So just an example, I asked Siri to find me on the web, and so you can see a couple results on the left, on the right. I asked for ultimate social selling speaker, and this is what popped up. Now the results are going to be different than when these came out because this has dropped off. But at the time, this press release was the second one. So if someone was saying ultimate social selling speaker, they would find me. Now, when you write a press release, there are a lot of different things you can do. There's a 33-point PR checklist we're looking at right now. And you might be thinking, wow, that's overwhelming. Yeah, it could be. You don't have to do everything on here, but it just gives you an idea of all the different things you can do to get your press release going. And when clients ask me or prospects say, wow, you know, what goes into writing a press release, and I show them this, they're like, wow, that's a lot. And so I just want you to get the idea that a simple 5-paragraph document, which is like intro, remember the inverted pyramid, what they need to know on top, then a couple paragraphs below that, closing paragraph, and then your bio backgrounder. A simple document can really become much more. It can really be repurposed, and it can drive so much activity. So this is a 33-point PR checklist. We are going to talk about a few of these things. One of them is going to be the headline. And when you do a headline, I love to send my headlines through a headline analyzer. And this is one from CoSchedule. There are a bunch of them out there. And what it does is it takes the headline for the press release and tells you how good it is. And honestly, when people are going through looking at what to look at on the internet, there are two things they look at. And I would ask you, if I was doing a live workshop, what do you think they are? And nobody gets them both right every time. It's kind of funny. But the first thing people look at is the headline. This is the same on LinkedIn too. That's the first thing people look at is your headline. And the second thing is the picture. So you do need an image with your press release. And once you run your headline through, then you're also going to want to have keywords in the headline. So what we're going to do is look at a couple of examples. This was a press release for the Speaker Academy. And if you are interested in driving any kind of speaking activity to get lead generation for your business or share a message, a very inspiring message, National Speakers Association is a great place to help you learn how to do that. And I was a dean for the Academy last spring. So this is an example. We have keywords here in the headline. Some of the keywords are professional speakers. Then you want to have stories inside your press release, links. That's one of the biggest forgotten pieces, is not having a link in your press release. People have to go somewhere. And we'll also talk about how to distribute. But if you look over to the right, you can see the headline impressions, the page reads, the click-throughs. And so that gives you an idea of how many people saw this. It's also a great way to test ideas. So if you want to write a press release and see if people are interested in whatever this topic is, the headline impressions, and this is, to me, that's an interesting statistic, but the biggest ones are page reads. How many people actually read it and how many clicked through? Now, thinking about what kind of images you can use for your press release and your event, this is one that I did for this webinar that you're on, and thank you again for being here. And you can see here that it looks kind of like it was designed, and it was through a tool called Canva, C-A-N-V-A, so canva.com. And what I like about this is it really gives you a measurement. We can see 38 people liked it when I pulled this. And you can see which hashtags are working. Hashtags are important because they can help you really boost the power of your press release other places. And here, this was easy to do. I just picked, what you do on Canva is you pick a template, and then you drop in images. The image with the coins was free. And then I just put some text over the gold overlay and dropped in the logos for Insurance WebEx and then for my company. So the reason we want to use images is the brain processes images 60,000 times faster than text. It's just incredible. So you have to have an image. And you could put your logo from your agency. That would be okay. You could use your picture if you want to do that. It's probably a good idea. And then if you want to develop some graphics that go along with Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn that go along with your press release, that would be fantastic. You can also add them to the press release with mini distribution systems. So now we're going to get into the last part, which is the speed up with lead generation. And this is really the core. We really want to figure out how can we get more people to be interested in who you are and what you do. And when you talk to any business, probably their number one thing they're working on the most is lead generation. I know there's all these things that say, well, you know, you should serve your customers, and it takes longer to get a new sale than it does to work with your current people. So you could even think of your current client base as a source for lead gen, and certainly for referrals. But really the key to that is being more persuasive. And it's not necessarily to me about selling, it's making, it's not making, well, maybe it is, but anyway, it's really about convincing them to understand that they are important enough to take care of themselves and their family and to really investigate the services that you have. So it's about being more persuasive. And so you could be persuasive all throughout the buyer cycle. It's really important to look at what is your buyer cycle. The first part is awareness. How do they even find you? And that's where PR is great, because once you get a story, you get it out to the right media, and then they publish it, or if an influencer publishes it, that's even better, because then you've got built-in credibility from these sources. The next part is how are they going to get in touch with you, and this is where the link comes in, and then a meeting, client, and referrals. So we're really focusing here on the awareness piece. That's really the biggest piece. And what we want to do is we really want to look at, to be persuasive and really build in some more credibility for you, is what kind of media outlets do you really want to tell your story? So it could be the local paper, it could be a trade magazine, it could be a podcast. And you really want to think about that. And then as far as influencers go, it could be someone in your town that has a presence on Facebook. I know in our area, there are a lot of moms groups that have Facebook. And so if you have, one way to really get involved with these kinds of folks is to have an event, and events are great for press releases. So how do you put it all together? And what we do for our clients is we have a system called Wired, and it's a 5-part system. And we already talked about the design in 4D. So we're going to back it up and go to the beginning. And this is all inside every press release. So I'm going to walk you through it. The first part is words. And when you think of words in a press release, I'm going to give you some ideas on really how to get those words just right. The first thing is we talked about having a great headline. I think the best headline I ever wrote was 50 pizzas rolled into one pie. So 50 pizzas rolled into one pie. And it was really announcing a pizza parlor, but my phone rang off the hook from reporters after I sent that one out. So you want to have a great headline. You want to make sure that you have keywords that people are going to pick up. So your keywords might be your location. It could be your area of specialization. It could be a topic that you're talking about. And it could also be one of, let's see, it could be one of the vehicles you could use to really get to the next stage, which is intentions. And intentions is, what is your goal? What do you really want this to do? And what do you want them to do? So maybe your intention is to get them to learn more. Maybe you want to inform them, so you're going to have a workshop or an event with information. The next part is routes. How are they going to get this information? And with public relations, you can do it a lot of different ways. One way is to send a press release to reporters. You can send it via email. You can send them a pitch on Twitter. You have to be careful because some reporters don't want to be bothered. And if you're in a town that's not very big, you might be lucky enough to actually know your reporter on a first name basis and see them. So that's one way. You can also use an online distribution service, and you pay them to send it out. It's not one-on-one, but it does get to the search engines. So what kind of routes are you going to use? One of the most ignored or opportune routes that people forget about is your own marketing. So you can say, as seen in the news, and you can post your press release. You could even have a newsroom on your website, which I think is a wonderful idea. I don't know how many of your competitors would have a newsroom on their site, but if you do, and people are checking you out and looking at your reputation, your personality, that's a great place for them to really dig into the types of news articles that you've promoted and released. The next part is experiences. So what kind of experiences are you going to talk about? And maybe your press release might be about something you're doing in your life. Maybe you've run your 15th marathon, or it's your 100th. And so you can really talk about what kind of experiences about you, and then also about your clients. I had one client I worked with, and they had a feature called Clients Off the Clock. And all we did was write about the great things their clients are doing. So you could really promote a client. Maybe you have a client of the month, and that becomes your press release. And then the last part, design, we talked about, which is digital, on-screen, direct, one-on-one, whether it's on screen or in real life, dynamic, really turning up the emotions, and then data, how are you going to measure it? So now we're going to go through some examples, and this is, you can see I even used hashtags in this example here, and that was kind of effective, and it was also in the advertising and marketing industry, so you can really even narrow this by industry. Let's say you're really focusing on law, you could narrow it by law if you wanted. Then we talked a little bit about how are you going to release that press release online. And for small business, there is a site called G2 Crowd, and G2 Crowd is a place where you can really read user reviews for software and services. And on G2 Crowd, you can see the leaders for online press releases. And Cision is one, which is, it's kind of a lot to get into. I do have some that I feel are much more easy and approachable to get started with. Now, this is an example of how press releases wind up in search engines. The search term for this was event marketing expert, and out of 489,000 results, my press release came out #1. So it's a way to really break through, and this is something you can send out to and say, oh wow, look, we made the #1 spot, which to me is very exciting. This is another one. This is a search term, PR for speakers, and you can see here the second and fourth, actually the first and third results are related to something I've been working on, and the third result is actually from 2009. So that is that's a blog. You can think about a blog as public relations or publicity if you want. Then this is another example for keywords, how to write a press release for speakers, and that's from 2008. It's still hanging out there, and I'm showing you these two because if you want to go back and learn more about how to write a press release, and it's for speakers, but if you are in any industry, you should be thinking about getting your word out there as a speaker. All kinds of events are looking for you. Now, how about on LinkedIn? If you have a press release, you can reposition it as a LinkedIn article. And this actually was a pitch that I did to Inc. magazine to write a story about how to be a LinkedIn influencer. And they did pick it up, and I contributed to the article. And so it was shared a lot on Inc. And then I repurposed it and put it on LinkedIn. And you can see there, I had almost 4,300 views in 2014, and I just repositioned the exact same article for the meetings and events industry, and it wound up in their global publication. So if you have a good idea, you can keep it going and reinventing it and just, you know, keeping it alive and flowing. So a lot of times I think people are like, oh, we have to have another idea. Well, stick with what you have that works really well. Maybe you have the top 10 ways to save money on your groceries or something like that, that really positions you as somebody who's concerned about people's finances, and you're really there to help, and you want to make sure people are getting the most of it out of it, then you can do that. I know I want to write an article about how to save, I think, what was it, $250 a month on your phone bill. I figured out how to do that, and it's not super easy, but it's pretty easy. So if you can really figure out how you're going to support people, then with information, that's really powerful for everyone. So this is an example of how video on LinkedIn really works well. This is a video that was only 33 seconds and it got to 5,000 views and I stopped counting. So if you're thinking, I don't know how to get attention, if you have, like this was promoting an event, let's say you have an event coming up, you can do a quick video and put it on LinkedIn. So when we think about the publicity in the press release, we talked about how you really want to mediatize the message. This is an example of mediatizing the message. And then if you do want to work with influencers at all, I'd recommend you listen to a podcast I did on Influence Pros about how to reach micro-influencers. And micro-influencers are people that have an audience, maybe not a huge audience, but they do have a very involved and dedicated audience. They're very engaged. So it's not like the people that are really, you know, celebrities you see on the cover of People magazine, but they are the celebrities to their own audience. So it would be worth looking into, you know, who are the influencers in your area. And the influencer could also be an organization. When we do studies for our clients on who is the most influential in their community in terms of social media, quite often it's an organization or it's an outdoor attraction, something like that. So how can you partner with these people to come up with the story? You can also go to events and turn the event into publicity. This was me as a blogger when Sears was doing great things back in 2011. They decided to break through the Consumer Electronics Show and take a group of 5 bloggers. I was lucky enough to be one of them. I covered the small business, home business view. And so I was sent out to Las Vegas with this team to cover the entire show. So you could do that. If there's a show you want to go to, let's say that you love working with people who own boats. You could go to a boat show. You could have people from your team, or you could have some people who are experts, or maybe it's fishing and you're going to have some of the people who are going to be doing fishing demos. You could do a quick video with them, but it's all about getting your name associated with something bigger than who you are. And then people are very excited. They're like, wow, you were there, and you're going to get coverage that no one else will, which is really exciting for everyone. So on our program guide today, we talked about 3 different things: how to move you up more into that VIP status by becoming more visible, empowering up your PR, your personality and reputation. So really digging into who you are, who you want to serve, what kind of reputation you want to have, and then also looking at that PR primer. How do you want to publish and really think about mediatizing your message? Most importantly, thinking about repeating and really elevating yourself to the status of a publisher and someone who's, if you want to think about the anchor person on the news, you're someone who's really got the information that people need to know. The next part is how to be more influential and lead up in 4D. Remember, it's digital, direct, dynamic, and data. So digitally, how are you going to show up more on screens everywhere? And that could be through SEO, search engine optimization. It could be through your press releases that'll push you up through there. And then direct, how are you going to talk to people one-on-one? And then also in social media, there are a lot of groups that, most towns even have a group. There are a lot of groups where there's a lot of activity and a lot of conversation. If you're a person who goes on and is helpful and offers answers, then people are going to start looking for you and trusting you automatically. So that's one component of PR. Personality and reputation. You're helpful, and your reputation is that you're a person they know is going to show up when they need them. Then dynamic is storytelling, and really with emotions. So you want to make people feel, I like to make people feel good, and you want to entertain them. You can go too far being funny, so you have to kind of, you know, moderate that. And then data, how are you going to measure what you do? So we looked at number of leads. One thing you can do too with the press release is to put a specific link in the press release. So if you want people to sign up for a free guide, let's say that you're announcing that you just published this free guide on 101 ways to save for college that you didn't know about. So then you can have a link that will track how many people actually come to the site. And then, you know, you want to be persuasive. You want to speed up your lead gen. And to do that, really think about that. The example I just gave you is a good one, a guide. How are you really going to get closer to these people? That's really the biggest question. And one of the questions I've always asked people is, where would you really like to see your news, and who would you like to have tell it? And my first big insurance company client for marketing and PR said they wanted to be in Risk Management magazine. I'm like, seriously? And they said, yeah, can you call them up? And they wanted to be a National Underwriter, and we did get them in everywhere. But when I called Risk Management magazine, I was really nervous because I'd never really called a big paper before. And I said, I have this idea my client really wants to talk about. They were transplant, and I said, we want to talk about how to transplant risk. And they loved it. And so the next thing I knew, not only were we getting a story, we were getting the cover story. And not only that, they really hadn't experimented with images before, but I had some ideas. So we really changed the tenor of that entire publication with one article. And you just never know where it's going to go. So if you have an idea, you might even want to keep a running list of your ideas, but give yourself some credit, because you might have a big idea that the world would really, really love to know about. And I'm sure you do. So you always want to think about what are the success stories that you can share. And I know we talked about client privilege. You don't want to really go out and, give all the background details on everything, but there are success stories all around you. And it could even be as simple as celebrating all the hometown heroes, where you find people in your town that you think need more attention. And maybe that's your press release series. So you've got a couple of ways to go here. That's what we've talked about today. And we're rounding up around the corner here. And I do want to thank you again for spending time with me. It's always gratifying to share information. And when we get to this point, I think about when I was out with my husband and my son. My husband loves to hike, and he's usually like, oh, it's only going to be an hour long and it's really easy. I've learned that there's an app called All Trails, and I look up the trail before we get on it, because sometimes it's not that easy. And anyway, this was a day we were out in Arizona with our son, and we had been hiking for the promised 2 hours. I think we were finally out there for 5 or 6. We saw everything though. I mean, it was gorgeous. And I got a ton of great pictures, but it was more than I thought. And so we saw this sign. I thought that says it all. I mean, the Cinch Trail is the one where you just go right back to you just go where you're going. If your goal is to get your lead generation and take it home, you just take that shortcut and you're there. Or you can take the Scenic Trail, which is what studying on your own is like. And with the Scenic Trail, you go a lot of different places. You can go off the trail. You can stop for a little while. That's what happens. I don't know about you, but maybe there's something you want to look at, and it might take you days to get where you want to go, or maybe you'll never get there. And that's one of the things that really frustrates me the most, is people come to webinars or they come to my live presentations and they're so excited, and then they lose the momentum. So I would like to stay with you on the Cinch Trail and just get you where you need to go so that you can be a VIP faster, better, sooner. And so I have this program that I developed just for Insurance WebEx. It's called Get Noticed Now PR. And it's all about how to attract media and leads, how to intersect the both of them so that you can power up, lead up, speed up right now. Now, some of you are sitting there saying, no, well, I always sit on these webinars and I don't like that. You don't even know what I'm going to tell you, but you don't like it. And I get that, it's like, that's not going to work for me, and maybe it won't. Now, some of you might be saying, wow, I really want to try that out. Can you tell me more? And this is from the movie Shaun the Sheep. If you haven't seen that movie, it's just fantastic. So let me tell you more for those of you who are interested. And instead of features and benefits, I'm going to do outcomes and benefits. So working with me, you'll get a media list, so you'll get coverage. And the media list is going to cover traditional media, industry media. We'll really work to figure out exactly who you want to target, what channels you're going to work with. And one of the things when we've worked with insurance companies and people is to really discover what channels work the best to really build up your influence and connect you with the right people. You'll get help with writing so that you'll know how to hold attention. And that's really important because you can write a press release that people just don't read. And then strategy. How are we going to integrate this with lead gen? I'm huge on strategy, and that's one of the problems I see is people come up with programs, but they don't plug in. You know, it's kind of like I have this iPhone. If I take an Android charger, it's not going to work. So how do we really get those to connect with each other? Then learning. What kind of results are you going to have? And that's really important. We really want to get results. And I want you to really get your press release out there, get out there, have a media plan that's going to carry you from where you are now to a higher VIP status with more visibility, influence, and persuasion. And then community. We'll have a community where we can talk to each other, get feedback, and really see what works and how we can take it to the next level. So what's the training structure? And I've been training for a really long time. Those sales training programs I told you about, where I was increasing sales by 400% and people were saying they were better than Xerox training programs, that was back in my 20s. So I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up, but then I really wanted to be in sales. And I was in sales, and now I'm back to being a teacher. So anyway, back where I want to be. So we're going to have 4 live webinars, and we'll walk you through exactly what to do. You can learn on demand, so you can study when you want, and then there will be a private group for Q&A. It's all going to happen within 30 days. So from the start to the finish, you will be all set to go. And what I'd like to do is have it ready for you, so it'll be ready by May 1st. You can have things going over the summer. You can build up for the fall. Whenever you want to press play, you can do it, but you will have a system and a program that will keep you going. Now, I don't think I mentioned what it costs to hire a PR pro. And it can start at $3,000 to $5,000 a month for 6 months to a year. And for our programs, they're $5,000 a month with a year retainer. So what that gets you is it gets you media coverage, it gets you the press release, it gets you social media, it gets you a surround sound effect. It's very exciting, and people think, well, I don't know, is that a good deal? I think it's the best deal, because if you were going to do the PR and the social media, it might be around $10,000. So a month. So anyway, that's what it would be 60,000. And so I could say, all right, this program is going to be 10%. So it would be $6,000, but I'm not going to do that. And then I could say, well, I'll do a third of that. So it would be $2,000. So I'm not going to do that either. And then I could say, well, I'll knock $500 off. I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to make it $1,000 because this is in beta. It's being tested. So, but I am going to make it less than $500. So what you're going to get is you're going to get a $5,500 investment. It's like everything we would do in the first month with a client, plus you'll get a $500 power hour consultation with me one-on-one. And it's a $5,500 value for a $497 investment. That's only for people who take fast action. And there's the website if you want to go there. I really feel like, you know, working with people, there's a couple things that happen. You could say, okay, I know I can get this information anywhere. You can. One thing I do want to give you, though, is the motivation and the inspiration, and just tell you how great you are. And that's why this does include the power hour for people who sign up today. Because I feel like one of the biggest challenges people have when I work with them is they don't see how great they really are. And that's what I love. I love to take people and dress them up and make them really as wonderful and as exciting and as vibrant and just as irresistible as they could possibly be. And it's hard for you to do that yourself. I know even for me it is, even though I'm a PR person. My PR person friend took my PR and took it and buffed it up again. So anyway, I would like to help you with that. And here is what the website looks like when you get there. It's really just an order form, but that's what you're going to see. So that is our offer today. And I do appreciate your time, and I would love to learn about what kind of stories you would love to promote. And if you would like to be part of this course, then please sign up and we will get you going.